My name is Bill McCamley. I'm a state representative down here in southern New Mexico, and like happens every 2 years, I'm running for re-election and will be on the ballot for many of you watching this upcoming here in November. Unfortunately, though, across the country in some of the national races, and that's filtering down to other elections, it's becoming more and more popular to say, vote for me because the other person is not good for these reasons, rather than saying, hey, you should vote for me because I'm going to do these things. And I firmly and truly believe that it is up to every single one of us that runs for office to give you a reason to vote for us, to tell you what we're going to do. And that's my attempt right here. So I really believe, firstly, that in New Mexico, the two most important things we need to talk about are the economy and education. When you look at the problems our state is having, where we're so high in unemployment, where we're one of the worst places in the country to be a child, where we have more people moving out of the state than moving in, we're the only state in the region with this problem, it comes down to those two things. And there are some very specific things that I'm working on that I hope you agree with me on that we can move forward with if I get reelected. The first is related to the local area here in Doña Ana County, and I really believe that the border and the potential there for job creation and trade with Mexico and the rest of the Western Hemisphere, New Mexico State University, and the opportunities that are available to create jobs through all the things that they do, and the aerospace industry, between what we do with our airport, between what we do with our spaceport, and all those other things, these are the areas that really give us the most opportunity to create high-paying jobs locally so that people can stay here and not have to move somewhere else. I really believe in tax reform and think that our tax system not only is bad for a lot of poor folks, but is bad for business creation as well because it's so complicated. And I'll be working to help broaden and flatten the tax code while also hoping to fix some of the regressive issues in there. And what that means is it affects poorer people more than it does wealthier people. I really want to work to legalize marijuana. Those of you that follow me know this is a big thing of mine. I think it's good for our education, since most of the tax money that's being brought in from that, if we pass it, will be spent on schools. It's also good for businesses, and that the money that is currently being sent down to Mexico to murdering drug cartels would actually stay here in the state, and think that's really important. I believe education-wise in STEM education, that's science, technology, engineering, and math. For every person with a STEM degree here in the state, there are 2.1 jobs open for you. For everyone else with every other degree, there are 3.3 people looking for work. And so I'm really pushing that. I believe we should have a STEM competition that's unified statewide at the middle and high school level. I'll be writing a bill that allows for computer science in high schools to be treated as a math credit and other things, but I think that's very important. I also believe that standardized testing has taken way too big of a role in our schools. And when you talk to teachers, when you talk to parents, when you talk to students, there's no need for that many tests or that much emphasis on tests. And while testing can play a role, we've really got to scale back what we're doing in terms of testing. In terms of the bigger issues, I really believe we need to rework our university administrations. Right now, there are actually something like 17 different boards of regents in our state for almost all the universities. Whereas if you go to Arizona, for instance, they have 3 times the population and only 3 boards of regents. So I'm working over the summer to do research on how we restructure that so that universities can be much more focused on what they do, and we can also save money and use our resources more effectively. I also believe, and this is more of a long-term project though, that we need to use our resources. What do we do well here in the state to create jobs? And I firmly believe that infrastructure and educational resources are really necessary for moving the economy forward, and I think we should really look at our state permanent fund in not only funding early childhood education as being proposed by many people at the state, but also we need to start looking at that and saying, can we use that billions and billions of dollar fund to build infrastructure that will allow us to create jobs into the future? There's another issue that I want to bring up, though, too, and that's actually bigger than any one specific policy topic, and that's trust in government. Right now, that's at an all-time low. As many of you know, we have 2 presidential candidates that are actually underwater in terms of people's trust in them and their approval rating, and I think there are things, though, that we can do as a government to make sure that the public is more engaged and more trusting in government. I think we've got to have campaign finance reform. There is way too much money in politics. In fact, I will never run for Congress again, because when I did, I spent more time raising money than everything else. And I will support efforts to not only limit funding, but I'll continue to bring back a bill that limits the time that elections can be run. That's one of the biggest issues. We had these years-long elections, and we're constantly running for office and not governing, and I think that's a real problem. I also really think that we need to look at open primaries to get more people involved. I've also agreed to co-sponsor an ethics commission with a Republican up in Albuquerque. I think we need to be held accountable, and one of the problems we've had in New Mexico is we've had issues with corruption over the past 50 years, and that's kept us behind. I also believe very, very strongly that, look, I'm definitely on the more progressive side of issues, but I will work with Republicans when I agree with them. We can't be afraid to work with each other moving forward as a country, or else we're going to break apart. I also, and this is the last thing I'll say about this, I think politicians need to do a better job of meeting people where they're at. That means doing this sort of thing on social media. That means sometimes going to talk with groups that don't agree with you. So I've been to a Tea Party meeting, and I go to the Chamber of Commerce when they ask. And I think it's very important that we try very hard to meet everybody, to listen to them, to take them for where their situation is, recognize that everyone in this country is important, and try to bring people together to move forward on issues. Lastly, I always tell people, any politician that ever tells you that they agree with you on every issue is a liar, and I am not one. What I tell people is I'll always promise you three things. I will work really, really hard. I will listen deeply and thoughtfully to everything that everybody has to say, and I will always be as honest and truthful and forthright with you as possible. So if these are sorts of things that you agree with, my name is Bill McCamley once again. I sure would appreciate your support in my run for the state legislature. If you live in my district, I sure would appreciate your vote. And if anybody has any money, I've got to raise about another $10,000 to make sure that I can get my message out with things like yard signs and radio ads and that sort of thing. So thank you very, very much for taking the time to listen to this. I truly appreciate it and hope everyone's having a great week. Bye.